Welcome back to the Identity Woman Podcast. I am your host, Chantelle Branch, and this is the place where we uncover the denials and the realities of trauma to help us progress through the healing journey. And listen, do you ever remember those times when we would make all the decisions that we wanted? We didn't want to listen to anyone, and it may have been those teenage years, and we have done some things and said some things and disobeyed a lot of rules. And some of those decisions led us down a path, right? And perhaps it was teenage pregnancy. Perhaps it was becoming a young mom and having to live on your own, right? Perhaps it is something as simple as, hey, I got somebody pregnant, and now I've made a decision, and how is that going to impact my child? How's that going to impact my child coming into the world? And so today, I really wanted to have the conversation with a professional to talk about the effects and the impacts of when a baby is being birthed into an already traumatic lifestyle and how it impacts them cognitively, how it impacts them on an educational level, an academic level, how it impacts their growth. And I want to bring on a professional. And so today I have Dr. Wanika Vance Clark.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the Identity Woman Podcast. So I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in the industry, and your passion, your mission, what brings you to the Identity Woman Podcast.
Well, I started back in 2003.
Okay.
I was an early childhood, preschool, kindergarten teacher. So I did my student teaching in Mississippi. I went to the University of Mississippi, and when I did student teaching there, the kids were pretty high. And so in my mind, as an 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, I'm thinking, well, this is how it is. I came back home to Illinois and started my first teaching job. Okay. I was in the first grade classroom. I'm excited. I give the kids their little chapter books, and I'm like, here. And they're all like, we can't read. And that was a big eye-opener for me because...
And this was first grade?
That was first grade.
In Illinois?
In Illinois.
And what year was this?
2003.
2003. Okay.
Yes. And I was in total disbelief because I had just left Mississippi, children reading chapter books, and I'm thinking Mississippi.
In first grade?
In first grade.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking Mississippi is a little behind us, so we should be more advanced than them. And that was my reality. I had this group of 25 kids. They could not read. Most of them could not write. And so I knew I had to do something. I knew where the school was located was a low economic, socioeconomic background. A lot of the parents didn't have educational backgrounds. And so it was a different ballpark. So
when you're saying that the community that was in Mississippi, their demographics look different amongst that population.
Yes.
So what were their demographics in Mississippi?
With the school I was at, most of the children came from families where their parents were in college or had graduated from college. It was a middle to high income level community. Okay. They had resources. And like I said, most of the parents were currently in college or they had graduated, they had degrees. And so they had a different outlook.
Got it.
And then the ones in Chicago Heights where I was teaching, most of them didn't go to school. They were from low-income households. Most of them were free or reduced lunch students. And then the parents, I realized I gave an assignment one day, and I said, pick your college or university that you want to go to. And 90% of them picked Perry State, which was the local community. We did a college career project. And so most of the parents, 90% of them, they chose Perry State College, which is a local community college. But I realized most of them didn't know about other colleges or universities because most of them didn't travel outside of their community. So all they knew was Perry State, and that was a stagnation for the parents, which also stagnated the children because they thought that was all that was possible for them.
Okay, so you're an educator,
yes,
an author.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your books and what really drove you to say, hey, I want to get this information out to everybody.
Well, one of my books is about the brain development of children. and providing parents and educators with steps that they could use to actually ensure their child were successful in school, they didn't have behavior problems, and they enjoyed learning. And so that book actually provides educators and parents with different brain development strategies they can utilize in order to see that success in their children.
So what was like that problem or that case study that you looked at to realize, hey, this is a gap and this is something that parents need to know about?
Well, when I looked at the test scores, so the school I was teaching at, they were on the watch list, the academic watch list. That means most of the children are scoring below grade level. Mm-hmm. And then compared to the state, that school was at the 5% at the bottom. Mm. And so I knew that if something didn't change, it would just be a cycle of children who were not successful, because a lot of times illiteracy and children who struggle in school is passed down from generation to generation. So my goal was to show these children that they could, but in turn, while teaching them and educating them, empowering their parents, because the parents, most of them struggled in school themselves. So they were resistant to school. They didn't want to really participate with their children because they didn't feel empowered. Mm-hmm. And so my goal was to give them strategies that they could implement at home within 10 minutes every day and see their child become successful. And that would help them build their own self-confidence that, hey, academics, education isn't that bad. It's something that we can all be successful at.
Wow. And so how many people, do you have a program? Are people coming through your program?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So I own Foundations for Advancement. Mm-hmm. The goal of that is to give every child a strong educational foundation that they can advance from. And so with that, one of our top programs is our Reading in 26-Day program. That's where we take 3 through 5-year-olds who are non-readers, and we help them become readers within 26 days. And so we just use 20 minutes a day where we're implementing brain development strategies. So a lot of times when you think brain development strategies, people don't know what that is. So I use a lot of gestures. So if I'm teaching children sight words, I may do this and they know that's can. I do this, they know that's see. So if I'm teaching them how to read, I'm using brain development strategies. That's going to make their brain actually take in the information, process the information, and then be able to utilize it long term. And that helps actually to build their self-confidence. So with our Reading in 26 days, they're going to go from non-reader. By the end of 26 days, they'll be reading at the end of a kindergarten, beginning of first grade level. Okay.
So what about students who are coming from like traumatic backgrounds? How do you deal with that? Do you do assessments for that to provide more resources for the family or for that child?
Well, we always assess our students as they come in, mm-hmm. but we also understand that when it comes to traumatic experiences, that really affects them long term. So we try to give the parents as well as the students ways to cope when it comes to trauma, childhood trauma, just because we know the impacts are bigger than academics. So it's going to affect them academically, but it also affects their health. So we want to make sure that our families are aware of that. So I do a lot of educating our parents as well, because we want them to know the long-term effects. A lot of people don't understand that childhood trauma is tied to cancers, it's tied to diabetes, and they're not understanding, hey, this has a long-term effect. It's not just going to affect them in the classroom. You'll see the kids in the classroom who are resistant or they don't want to participate. A lot of times that either comes from a traumatic experience or the lack of self-confidence that they can perform in the classroom. So with our program, we want to ensure that we build their self-confidence, and then we help to minimize the trauma.
So do you go to different schools to do this? Do they come to you? How does this program run?
So with our program, they come to us, and we also started doing it virtually. So we do offer some virtual services, but they come to us, and we do individualized learning plans. So no child is the same. We're going to see where that child is, where they're struggling at, where they need their confidence built, and then is there something that's keeping them from being their best. And then we always tell them, you're competing against yourself. Even if a parent has 2 children in the program, it doesn't matter what this child is doing because they're not in competition with each other. They're competing against themselves. This is a personal journey. Because you can have
that's a tough mindset to change, because we think about like when we grow up and you have siblings or you have friends, it's always who's the fastest on the block, who's the smartest, who could play the best instrument, who's the who plays basketball or whatever the best, and it's always, and so that's just like maybe at home or within your household structure, and then maybe with your outside friends. But then you go to school and then you compete academically with the kids in the classroom. So that is just like a tough mindset to begin to hack into and to break.
So we really start with those younger group, just to give them that jump start with our program. The goal is not just to get them reading in 26 days, but we want the long-term results. So if we work with you 3 through 5-year-olds, our goal is when you're graduating from high school, graduating from college, you're still excelling. And so that's what we want. We want the long-term results. And so we work on mastery, but we also believe, everyone says parent participation. We don't want you to just be there and participate. We want you to understand why we're doing things, how it's beneficial to your child, how it's beneficial to you. And then with our parents, we also help them when it comes to like starting their own businesses, changing their mindsets, giving them tools. So our goal is to provide families the resources and tools they need to be successful. So academics is just one key that we provide them, but we have several other portions that we provide to families.
So do you host events? And how do you get the people to find you?
We're on social media. We've been around since 2011.
Okay.
So a lot of word of mouth. People find us through word of mouth, social media. We do host some events. But mostly it's social media or word of mouth that people are.
You think about the brain development of children, and we just come through the 2020 pandemic, and so now we're rebuilding our lives. The dust is settling, and people, like you were mentioning earlier about foundation and having to have a firm foundation to stand on. As we look at like the test scores from children for the those 2 years that they were in, like a lot of it says that they're behind, that they're maybe a grade or 2 behind. How do you combat that? How are you helping families perhaps realize that is something that's going on and building out that individual learning plan for that child?
Well, first, I would say don't try to build on that faulty foundation. See where the learning gaps are, and then go back and rebuild them. A lot of people say if your child was in kindergarten for 2020, first grade 2021, they missed a lot. And so those foundational years that they really need, something was missing. And I get a lot of parents who are saying, well, she's not reading, he's not able to form his sentences right. That's because they didn't get that. And so I always tell parents we have to go back to where the gap was, because education is a building block. You can't build without all the blocks that you need. And so I would definitely say go back. Let's see, where are they missing the gaps? Was it a sight words? Was it phonics? What part did they really miss? And let's go back. And I think that's what affects a lot of parents, because they're scared to stop and just go back.
I was going to ask, is it pushback with that concept?
What I try to do with most parents, it is pushback with some. I'm not saying that your child has to repeat those grades, but you need to get them sources, resources, and support that's going to help build while they're still building. And so it might be a tutor. It might be just having someone who can define what areas they're missing. So I have a lot of parents say, well, my child isn't comprehending what they're reading. Okay, so if they're not comprehending what they're reading, maybe they're a choppy reader. And if they're a choppy reader, how can we get them more fluent? And so it's really figuring out what the child is missing and then getting them some support systems to help them fill in those gaps.
Okay, so how does a parent do that?
One way would be actually getting a tutor. Another way would be identifying how the brain actually functions.
So when you're saying a tutor, let's like if they have a 4-year-old, then they need to find some type of tutor to help them, get them on track to?
So with the 4-year-old, it's going to be a little different because they're
Okay.
really just getting started.
Okay.
With the 4-year-old, I'm definitely going to say communication with your child. Your child should hear 30,000 words a day.
Okay.
If your child isn't hearing 30,000 words a day, that's the difference between a low-functioning reader to a high reader. A lot of parents don't talk to their children nowadays. They, you put them, here you go.
phone.
Yeah, go.
Take the phone. Girl, give him the phone. I don't want to hear him crying.
Right. And so it gets away since parents are pushing and they're living their life and leaving the child.
Yeah.
I really start with, are you talking to them? They need 30,000 words. Like, think about 30,000 words a day. That's a lot of talking. And it can be as simple as go over there and get your black shoes with the white shoelaces and bring them over here and sit them on the blue rug. Now you're giving them colors. You're giving them the names of items. I saw a child who was in 1st grade who didn't even know the names to cereal.
Oh, okay.
Because parents aren't talking.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
the first step with a 4-year-old, I'm going to tell parents, I need you to start talking to them. You need to make sure their vocabulary is built, they understand, and they comprehend. Because how can they later become a reader who comprehends if they don't even understand things? On standardized tests, we see a lot of children fail because they don't know the vocabulary. If we're at home and we always say go to the lunchroom, but on the test it says the cafeteria, I can't successfully put those together. I don't know a cafeteria is a lunchroom. And so vocabulary is a game changer. So just speaking to your child, talking to your child, and then making them independent. We have a 4-year-old, most parents want to baby them. Why? One of the reasons is because I don't want to wait for you.
But they're so cute.
Yes, and so I'm going to put on his shoes. It's not that he's so cute I want to put on his shoes. I don't want to wait for him to try to figure out how to put on his shoes. So we put on his shoes and we're crippling them. So I tell them, talk to your child. Give them chances to be independent. It's okay when students come to my program. At the beginning of the school year, we make them put on their jackets, their shoes, their everything. And I tell parents, if you pick them up and their shoes are on the wrong foot, it's okay. If their coat is upside down, it's okay. Don't change it inside this building. Walk outside with it, and then you can change it if you need to, because I need them to learn independence. I'm not going to put on their shoes, and I don't need you to do it. I need, when it's time to get dressed, give Johnny his shirt and say, put on your shirt. Because it's teaching them, and it's teaching them how to become problem solvers. Our children don't know how to be critical thinkers or problem solvers because nobody allows them to solve problems. We do it for them. And then when they get in an atmosphere where they have to use their critical thinking skills, they can't do it.
They can't do it.
They can't do it. So I would just say, talk to your child, give them chances to become independent, give them chances to solve problems for themselves. It's okay if they don't get it right. None of us get it right all the time. It's okay, but they're learning. And then you can say, hey, look at your jacket. Do you see it's hanging, it's up here and the hood is down here? Maybe something's wrong. Let's try it again. And so what I do for the little kids, I take their jacket, I lay it on the ground, and I say, now you sit on it and lay down and put your arms in. Oh, look, the hood is right by your head. But teaching them how to become these problem solvers that we want them to become. So that's where I would absolutely start with the younger kids, because if we don't give them the opportunities to fail, they'll never know what it's like. And then they can't problem solve.
And then they won't be able to take care of us when they get older. And
you won't want them to take care of you.
Like, no, I'll count my own checkbook, thank you. And it's so interesting that you say that, because having 4 children and watching my son with my 3 girls, people always say, oh my goodness, he speaks so well. What are you guys doing? I mean, he was born in a pandemic and the girls are teenagers. And so I'm like, I didn't do anything. I mean, we talk to him all the time, and I mean, he has just so many different things that teach and he can learn on and do. And then one thing that I was adamant about, because the girls, they would get tired of him. First, he's so cute because he's new, right? And I was like, oh, when he start touching their stuff, they just gonna get him, you know?
Yeah.
And so as soon as that happened, they would try to put a phone in his hand or put an iPad. And I'm like, no, we're not doing it. And it took like probably a year, because at that same time, we're still kind of coming out the pandemic a little bit, and we're going places just a little bit, and they would want to give it to him so he could be quiet. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing it. Till the point that now they know that's not what we do. We're not going to give him iPad, and he doesn't grab for the phone either, which is good, because I also was learning some about like our vision.
Yes.
And that short-term vision. We're not allowing them to see long range, and that is going to affect their growth and their development.
Yes,
which is like a big thing for you, is the brain development.
Yes.
So why is that such a big thing? I know that it's important for us to do that and to do that with our children, but how did you really get stuck on this is it? This is that thing.
Because from birth to 5, the brain is the most powerful. It takes in the most information. It can process information the fastest. It's the best time to submerge them. So I always tell people, from birth to 5, submerge them with everything you want. Because after 5, the brain slows down the way it processes information, the way it takes in information, and you'll notice they're not catching on as fast. And so when you have that window of opportunity, use it. That's why they tell mothers when you're pregnant, read. Talk to your baby, because they're hearing it and their brain is processing that information. I don't know if you all remember Your Baby Can Read.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And those kids were reading all of these words. It was because they did it through that window of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure that you're properly developing your child during that time. Yep. That means if a child goes through a traumatic experience through birth to 5, just like they take in all the positive, just think how that's affecting them as well, and how that's stagnating them. We know when anyone goes through a traumatic experience, you're going to fight or flight. And you're going to, every time you think about the situation, or something reminds you of that situation, you're going to have a reaction to it. And I think a lot of things that people don't realize is when you go through traumatic experiences, your brain releases a chemical into your bloodstream that starts to change the way your cells are formed. And that's why it's attached to different chronic illnesses and all of that. And so it's very important that although we're submerging them during that time, but we should also be guarding them, because we want to give them a chance to grow and develop properly and not have to respond to trauma.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was thinking about what you said about that 4-year-old, and what can parents do? You know, because like everything you're saying is good and it's valid, but what are some signs that they could be looking for at home? Because sometimes when you don't know, you just don't know. But because you listen to the Identity Woman podcast, and we had Dr. Wanika here, that she gave us just some practical tips that we could begin to look at, because a lot of times the signs are there, but because we don't want that stigma or we don't want that label attached to our child, we will call ourselves guarding them and protecting them from those labels, but in actuality, we are missing out on some resources and some help and some tools that we desperately need. And then they're 7, they're 10, they're 15, and you're like, well, I don't know where to help at, and it's like, I'm here. Like, what are some practical things that moms and dads can begin to look for in their maybe newborn birth to 5?
So, okay, you want practical signs of which part? Of
where it may be something that may be wrong. And so they can begin to go and get the help instead of, I think something wrong, but I don't want my kid to get that label.
I wouldn't even say to just look for the signs of something wrong. I would just say take advantage of that time frame anyway, because a lot of times parents look back and they say, well, I'm just going to wait till they go to kindergarten before I teach them.
Specifically, I'm talking about like brain development signs. So like if you have, say you have a baby who is 6 months, but the baby is not sitting up at 6 months. The baby should be reaching for your food, and the baby is like I don't want to do nothing. Like whatever,
I would say look at first of all, you really want to pay attention to the milestones that the doctor is giving you, because those milestones are things that the child should be able to accomplish at each level. And when you're seeing they're not doing that, that's a red flag. I would definitely say from there, you want to talk to your pediatrician. You want to get some additional testing done. What I see, a lot of parents are like, they don't want to get it done, because especially if they were a person who had an IEP growing up, or they struggle with labels growing up, then they're more resistant. But I always say things like that they're generational. They get passed down. So if you struggled, there may be a chance that your child is struggling. If someone else in your family, one of your siblings or something, they struggle, there's a good chance. So you want to look at those milestones. You don't want to take them lightly. And if you've done everything that you can do, then you need to reach out for some help. A lot of people wait and they see your child is 1 and 2, they're not talking. That's a sign, that's a red flag, something's going on. And then also, when the doctor mentions it, take it into consideration, because sometimes people, again, I don't want to admit that something's wrong. I don't want to feel like my child is different. But I think parents have to be open and honest with themselves. You see that this child in your family, by 7 months, they were sitting up, they were eating, and now this child is 1 year old and they're still not hitting those milestones. Now, your pediatrician has mentioned it to you. When you go to, even if you're on like WIC or something, they check the milestones.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see that they're not hitting them, it's okay to say, maybe I should get a second opinion. Maybe I should see what's really going on. And I think parents have to take themselves out of it. It's not a direct...
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
It's taking yourself out of it.
Right.
As a mom, it's like, no, that's my baby. I want to protect them. I don't want anybody to harm them. But what I hear you saying is early detection.
Yes.
Being able to pay attention to the doctor milestones. They print the handouts to you, and sometimes you're like, well, I already have 3 kids. I don't need no help. Right. But then, because life's right, and it gets in the way, and problems and accidents and situations happen, and it takes our attention away from it, right? And sometimes we like to numb ourselves with anything that will take the attention off of our problem, right? And so what I hear you saying is like really being honest with yourself first.
Right.
And because that's really, to me, like the only way I can take myself out of it is if I'm honest with myself, right? What is the situation today, right? And that's really looking from moving away from denial and moving to reality. My reality is that something is going on with my child. I really don't know what it is. It's in between that age range that we're talking about today of birth to 5. And I saw the milestones, and the doctors may have said some things, but you haven't yet made that move or made the decision. The decision is about the child.
Right.
And removing yourself is being honest with what the situation is today.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people take it very personal.
Yeah.
When your child isn't meeting where you thought they should be, you don't want to get a second opinion because you don't want it to be what you hope for it not to be. And so it's easier to just live in denial and keep moving. But as parents, we have to realize that the person who ultimately is affected is the child. And so early detection, getting them the services they need can be a game changer, because just because I had a child come in who was a nonverbal child. The doctor didn't know what was going on. The parent didn't know. But by the end of the school year, the child was speaking and talking and engaging. So putting them in the right environment and getting them the right support, and especially if you do it early on, can be a game changer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love the fact that you said that that's what you help families do, is to find the resources. So can you tell us some of the ways that you help families find the resources?
Well, it really depends on what they're looking for. So if it's something with their child, if it's something academic, then I'm always for, let's do an assessment on the child. Let's see where they are to get the best game plan. Everything is not cookie cutter. Everything is not something easy. So it really depends on where is this child. And then too, I always tell parents, I need you to be open and honest. Let's go back. Let's talk about your background. If you were a person who hated reading, and that means you probably never read in your house. your child never saw you read, so now they're resistant to reading. And so when it gets hard, they don't want to do it. So I like to talk to families to see, let's get down to the bottom of it, and then from there we can get resources that's actually going to work for you. That's with the academics, even when it comes to businesses. I have some parents like, yeah, I'm starting a business. Well, do you have your business name? No. Did you do so-and-so? No. Okay, so we're not starting a business yet. We have to start from the bottom. So really seeing what they're trying to accomplish long-term. My goal is to help them build legacies for their family. What is the legacy? What is your why? What do you want to see accomplished for your household? And how long do you have to accomplish that goal? Now let's create an action plan that's going to actually work for your family. And so that just in any area, you need an action plan. You have to have something that's going to show you where you are today and where you're trying to go and how long we have to get there. And so a lot of what I do is having conversations with those families to see what they want. And making sure it's realistic. Like, hey, if you're like, hey, we're trying to be millionaires in 5 years, well, do you have anything saved? Do you have any business? And it's no, well then let's do a realistic goal. And so I teach them on SMART goals because I need something that's realistic. And so now we can have milestones for you to hit in order to reach those goals. Because if not, you're going to fall off. Because if it's so far-fetched, when you see that you're not getting close, you're just going to fall off. And so it's going to be just a waste of time. So our goal is to bring them back to reality, help them find something that is actually achievable for their family, and then going from there.
Okay. So tell us, look right in that camera, tell us how we can find you, where you're located.
I can be found on Facebook under Juanica Vance Clark. My academy is Foundations for the number 4 Advancement. That's on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, Juanica Vance Clark, or Foundations for Advancement. And then also we have a website, which is Kabillionaire. That's KABillionaire.com. And on there, that's all of our resources. So you would be able to find things about our academy and all the other services that we currently offer.
I want to say to the parents who are raising up the students of tomorrow.
Remember, the foundation matters. You will want to build a legacy of excellence for your family, and that starts with the foundation. Don't be discouraged when things aren't falling into place like you planned for them to fall into place. Take it one day at a time. Sometimes you have to take it 1 minute at a time, but whatever you have to do, know that all things are working together for your good and for your child's good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Identity Woman podcast. I am your host, Chantelle Branch, and until next time.